Hi everyone, this is Ellie Mae with Silhouette Secrets Plus. Today I'm going to show you how you can create this type of project with the pop-up at the top of your card. Now this is a technique that you could use for making treat bag toppers, for making place cards at an event that you would set in front of each person, or if you wanted to create a card. As my photo shows, I made a card that shows a daisy on it, but it takes just a few simple tools in the Silhouette Studio software. The first thing that we have to start with, and this is going to vary depending on what kind of project you're working with, but you're going to make your base. So I'm going to come over to the left-hand side, I'm going to draw a rounded rectangle, and it doesn't have to be a particular size because I can change that. So I'm going to come to the transform panel on the right-hand side, and the second tab at the top is my scale tab with my width and my height designations. You can also find this in your quick access toolbar at the top. When your object is selected, you'll have these options show up. If your screen doesn't show as many options as mine does, you can find it under this little directional arrow as well. What you see in the quick access toolbar is dependent on your screen size and what your object that you have selected is. So we're going to change this. I'm going to change both my height and my width to 5.5. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a score line. So I'm just going to click on my line drawing tool on the left side. I'm going to hold my shift key down and I'm going to draw a perfect line all the way across. And then I can just change my width to 5.5. And then I'm going to come to the line style panel and I'm going to change that to a perforated line. And I just want to kind of make sure I decrease that a little bit. I don't want my perforated line to come over the top of my edge, and we're going to adjust that at the end as well. But then I can just center it using my align tools. I can center that in the middle of my card. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and select both of them. So I'm left clicking and dragging across both to select both objects. And then I'm going to use my top align top, and it's going to bring that line to the very top of my rectangle. I'm going to click off of it to deselect it and click back on the line only. Now I'm going to use a tool that I don't think many use or even know about, but it's called the Move By tool, and it's under your transform panel. It's the fourth icon at the top, and then it's also found in the quick access toolbar. It's under this little 4-directional arrow. So what we're going to do is we are going to tell the software that I want to move this line a very specific dimension. So I'm going to tell it that I want it to move 2.75 inches. I'm going to type that in and hit enter, and then I'm going to press the down arrow. This is going to move it exactly 2.75 inches from the top of my card. Now that's just one way that you can do it, but I found when you want specific dimensions when you're making a card, you can use the Move By tool and move it from the very edge of that card. Since I have a square, it would get, if I use the center align tools, it would get it to the same exact location too. But the Move By tool can come in very handy when you're making your own card sizes. So now that I have my base of my card created, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up this file I've been using. So I'm going to open up, it was a daisy file. And I'm going to use a piece of this file. It's called the Envelope with 3D Daisy Flowers, and it's by Lucilla Paper. So it's 350668. I'm going to right click on it and I'm going to choose open. So it opens into a new design mat. And then I'm going to select the flower portion of the design, left click and drag across it, and I'm going to hit Control C to copy it and Control V to paste it. And this is what I'm going to create and use as my demo as the photo that I showed you at the beginning. So I'm going to work with this largest daisy piece first. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to create an offset. So on the right hand side is this star with an outline around it. This is your offset. And you can choose to use an offset or not, but in this case, with the card, it gave it some more dimension with the object. So you can really adjust this as you want and for your project. If you want it completely flat, that could play into it as well. If you want the edges of your pop out to be exact, you would not use the offset. I'm going to use the offset in this case, and I'm going to decrease it a little bit. And I'm just playing around with things. Whatever you want to use, just play with it and work with it. And then I'm going to bring that offset over here into my card. Now here's a little trick to get your card size. So I made the bottom of this card 5 by 5, and in the US versus international users, our card sizes differ. And so this trick is going to work for whatever card size you're trying to make. So if I'm making a card that is 4.25 by 5.5, which is a standard card size in the US, I have my 5.5 of my width here. I need to make sure that my card, once folded, is going to fit in a envelope that fits 4.25 in the other direction. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to use the line drawing tool. I'm going to hold my shift key down and I'm going to draw a line. And then I'm going to change that line using the transform panel and scale tab. I'm going to use the line at 4.25 for height. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to select my rounded rectangle and my score line, and I'm going to right click and choose group so that they stay as one object. And then I'm going to select my line and my rounded rectangle, and I'm going to choose align bottom. It didn't move much on the screen, but here, I'll move it a little bit, and then I'm going to choose align bottom. It's going to align that line here to the bottom of my card. This is going to serve as my guide for how tall I can place my flower or my object here, because this is going to be the top of my card. So I want to keep that, and I can even pull in a guide from the top. I have the business edition. Anybody with designer edition or higher can pull a guide from the ruler. So I can see right now my flower is too tall. I can move that down so it's under my 4.25 guideline. And then I don't need this anymore. I can click on my guide to make it dark blue and hit delete. That one's good. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click and choose ungroup, so that score line is no longer grouped and functioning with my rounded rectangle. Next, what I want to do is I want to make sure that this offset is in the center of my card. So I'm going to select my rounded rectangle and my offset, and I'm going to choose align center. And it didn't really move much on the screen. It was pretty spot on, but I always like to verify that it's in the center. Now what I can do is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to zoom in so you can see this a little bit better. My score line, I'm only going to have a score line on the left side here and on the right side, because I'm creating this pop-up effect. So I'm going to just click on my score line and I'm just going to drop it, and I can adjust this as needed, and I can bring it over close to where my flower is. And then what I'm going to do is I am going to right click and I'm going to choose duplicate. It's going to duplicate that line, and I can bring it over to the right side. And then I can select this right side score line and my left side score line, and I can align those. And then I can make sure that that is also in the center of my card. So once those two are aligned, I'm going to right click and choose group. And then I'm going to hold my shift key down and select my rounded rectangle, and I just want to make sure that it's still in the center of my card base. And that looks pretty good. I can move this over just a little bit, undo, select my score line and move it over. Now this can also be adjusted after the fact, after we get done with this flower. The next part is the flower part, and it's a lot simpler than it looks. So what we're going to do is we're going to select the flower. We're going to double click to bring up the edit points, and I'm going to zoom in here so you guys can see this. I want to click exactly lined up with the score line, and I'm going to click on the line. It adds an edit point here, and I want to choose break path, and I get a little red dot, and what I'm going to do is grab that little red dot, Sometimes it's difficult. You want to grab the dot and you're bringing the point away. So if it doesn't grab right away, just hit Control Z or hit undo and try again. And then I'm going to come over to the right side, going to place a dot on the line, and I'm going to choose Break Path. And I get that little red dot, and I'm going to bring that away. And then what I can do, if I zoom out here, is I'm going to hold my Shift key down, and I'm going to drag my mouse across all of those edit points. That will select multiple edit points at the same time. With those selected, I can hit delete, and I have my pop-out shape. So if I come over here to my Send tab, you can see it's going to cut, it's going to score along my fold line here, and then it's going to cut my pop-out shape out of the back. I still have my card that's going to be folded, but I have created this pop-up shape on top of it. So if I go back here, you just want to make sure that your lines aren't going to cut through the edge of your card. I just try to do that. And if you ungroup the score line, you can manipulate each side individually. Now you may ask, why did we move it in the beginning to the center of our card? Well, we needed to know where the center, where the score line was going to be so we could place our flower there to start with. And then at the end, you can come in here and you can adjust it a little bit more. Each design that you work with is going to vary in the shape of it, where you break that point off at, and how it functions. So it's not really a one size fits all. If you want to see how this is going to look on the screen, I can just bring my flower over top of it. I'm going to change this one to a little bit different color just so you can see it. And then you would add all of your centers. This is the flower that's designed as a 3D flower, a pop-up, but you can make it a single dimension as well. It really just depends on what you want to do with it. So in this case, I used the daisy shape and I created the offset first. With the daisy, it gives it another little 3D dimension. And here is another photo of that card that I created using this technique. Now you could do this with many different things. So in this case, I used the line. I made it so it would fit in an envelope if I wanted it to. Now, since mine's 3D, it's going to squish it. It's not going to be as pretty. But if you were making a flat card, I used this guideline to get the top of my card and line it up at the top of my offset to make sure that my card, when folded, is going to fit in an envelope. But you could use this for place cards at an event as well, or even a treat topper. So here's a photo of a treat topper that I did very quickly for Easter for the neighbor kids. My daughter came running in and wanted a treat to give to the neighbors, and all we had in the house was pirate's booty. So here's the photo. And then I'm gonna open the file and show you how I created the file. So this is the file that I ended up using print and cut on, and I was able to fit 4 onto a 12 by 12 sheet. But it's the same concept. So I took this bunny design and I created the offset of the bunny, and then I used the breaking the edit points to break up that offset. And when I go to the Send tab, I had turned the cut lines off for the bunny, and I have my cut line around the outer edge of that bunny. So it made the bunny pop up. The best way to learn how to do it is just to sit down and use a simple shape and start creating. Start playing with the tools, cut a couple as a test design, and you never know what you can do. Sometimes the best things come out of just testing and trying new things. I hope this has helped give you some explanation on a few tools in the Silhouette software. This technique really isn't that difficult to do with a few basic steps. If you have any questions, please let me know. Have a great day. Thank you.